Good afternoon and welcome to George Bush International Airport in Houston, Texas, where I'm starting off my trip at the United Polaris Lounge. I get access to this lounge today because I am going to be flying Lufthansa business class. But first, let's get some lunch. One of my favorite parts about the Polaris Lounge is that you can actually sit down and be served lunch at a table with table service and a tasty menu. I went with the Polaris burger today. It was pretty good. It was average, but the fries were pretty yummy, and it wasn't too filling. But for dessert, come on. You cannot come here and not get the skillet cookie. I had a little bit more time before my flight, so I sat down in the lounge. I love these comfortable solo seats with the dividers. But before you head out of the Polaris Lounge, you can always top off with more freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. I just love how this is readily available. But today is special because I am going to be flying the 747-8 with Lufthansa. And guess what? We're in business class, and that means we are heading upstairs. This has been a big bucket list for me, and Lufthansa's business class seat is a little out of date. You share it with a partner. There's not very much privacy, but the 747 upper deck is still a pretty unique experience. As you can see, the cabin here is pretty intimate with only a few rows, and I chose the back seat for a little bit more privacy. Of course, the service on Lufthansa is still as good as ever. We have our pajamas and champagne to start. As I look over our gate, it's pretty unusual to be above the gate. And another benefit of sitting up here on the upper deck are these large storage containers next to your seat. While we were waiting to push back, we got our first look at the menu, so take a look. And there's no doubt there are plenty of options to keep us fed and not being thirsty on this about 9-hour flight today from Houston to Frankfurt. But it's time to take off, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the views as we depart from Houston, Texas. While we wait for service to begin, let's take a look at some of our seat features. I'm not sure why the TV pops out, but it does. And up front we have a small cabinet with water and a tote bag courtesy of Lufthansa. The controls for our seat are located to the right if you're sitting in a window. And this seat does fully recline into a lie flat bed. However, you can see it's a little bit awkward as you play footsie with your neighbor. But nevertheless, we have another storage compartment underneath the right side armrest. You can charge your phone or electronics, as well as find the remote for the IFE system. And while we're doing this, a little bit of a starter has been served with nuts and soda, and that is quickly followed by a nice healthy appetizer on Lufthansa. I had duck as well as that pretzel bread that was absolutely delicious. And for my main course, I went with the beef, and it was honestly cooked perfectly. One of the best steaks I've ever had in the sky. Last but not least, we have dessert, and for me that was in the form of a chocolate brownie with fruit and sauce. Simple but delicious. Now that we've been fed, let's stretch our legs a little bit, take a look at the cabin. That's it on the upper deck. Here's a shot of the staircase that you come up, and there is a small galley back here and 2 lavatories, so plenty of room for the upper deck, and you don't need to go downstairs the entire flight. Heading east towards Europe, it quickly got dark, so it was time to put our seat into bed mode. Lufthansa does provide a mattress topper, which is nice, as well as pillows and a blanket. So the comfort items are there. However, I do have to say the seat itself was a little bit narrow, and I did struggle to sleep a little bit on this flight. But we got a few hours of rest, and we'll see you in the morning. Rise and shine. We are almost into Frankfurt, but first it's time for breakfast. It was a pretty simple selection, but pretty good. While the seat was a bit lacking on Lufthansa, the service and soft product definitely make up for it. It was looking like a pretty rainy day in Frankfurt, but enjoy our approach into the airport. And that wraps up our 747 flight from Houston to Frankfurt. We parked at pretty much the furthest gate possible at Frankfurt International Airport, so I had a little bit of a walk to the S-Bahn. But today I have a 12-hour layover and I'm going on a day trip to Bacharach. In order to get there, it is a 15-minute ride on the subway to Mainz train station, where you then transfer to a local regional train that's going to take us about 45 minutes up the Rhine River to Bacharach. Highly recommend this day trip if you have a long layover in Frankfurt, as it's both easy to do and very affordable. The Bacharach train station drops us off only about a 2 to 3 minute walk into the center of town. So, welcome to Bacharach. It's a very quiet and cloudy day in Germany, but the views are still absolutely beautiful, and I love the architecture in this little town. It is something out of a fairy tale, even on a day like today where the rain has kept the crowds at bay. In fact, I hardly saw any other tourists at all, so I basically had the entire town to myself to walk around and enjoy the scenery. Other than street level, the best thing to do here is climb the trails in the hills that surround the town. On both sides, you can explore all sorts of different castles and viewpoints, so I'll show you some of those as I climb up this hill on the north side of Bacharach. And we've made it back to street level after those beautiful views on the hillsides that surround Bacharach. So let's head back into the center of town. There are a few cafes and shops that you can check out, but since I had free late lunch waiting for me at the lounge, I decided to go ahead and head back to the airport. So let's walk back through town. It's only a few more minutes to the train station. Of course, as I was leaving, the blue skies started to appear a little bit, but this was still a great little trip for a few hours on a long layover. Overall, I enjoyed my flight on Lufthansa, and the 747 was a bucket list item for me, but it wasn't the most comfortable seat and probably one I won't fly again. But it's time to catch the train back to Frankfurt and continue my trip around the world, so I'll see you on the next one.